Hi friends, it's Marvelous Monday again. We got to find something to have marvelous about Monday because it has to be my least favorite, and it probably would be less of an issue if I was retired. So I'm feeling that sometimes I want it more than others. But tonight I'm going to do more of the watercoloring techniques. Now these will be a little bit different. The blender pen was last week. We will use that again tonight. But we're primarily going to use the water painters. So I want you to see how easy it is to do watercoloring and get some really pretty results. And we're going to use the same set that we used last week, which is In the Country from Sale-a-bration. And just a reminder, we made these 3 cards last week, super easy. They went together really fast, and you'll find that these will come together really fast too, but with a little bit more if you want more detail. You want a little bit more something. So as a reminder, Stampin' Up! Has 3 catalogs a year. So they have 2 mini catalogs that come out in January and another one that comes out in summer, which will be July. And then they have an annual catalog that comes out in April, which is for a whole year. These other 2 are only for a few months each. They'll be 4 months. And then Sale-a-bration is something that only will be in January and February of each year. And so this is a limited time to get some really cool things for free. And as a reminder, this In the Country can be purchased or can be received for free when you make a $50 purchase. So the Sale-a-bration catalog has all kinds of goodies. There's the adorable owls. There's Thanks a Bunch. Dainty flowers, and I'll be doing a class on that in February. So that's going to be really fun. It's beautiful paper, and it coordinates with the Dainty Delight bundle. They have the Day at the Farm paper, and that coordinates with On the Farm bundle. They have this beautiful Sending Support stamp set. And then they have the Favorite Flowers, which coordinates with the Fragrant Flower bundle. And then they have the 3 In the Country, and then Beautifully Happy, which I haven't used yet. And then the Dandy Design cardstock. And then if you host a party for $150 or more, you get the Scenic Garden stamp set. So I guess I've been flipping through this and you haven't been able to see the, the things I've been looking at. So just to go over it real quickly again. So the owls, $50. Thanks a Bunch, $50. In other words, with a $50 purchase, you get those for free. The Dandy Garden DSP, which is just gorgeous. You get it free for $50 purchase. The Day at the Farm, again, $50 purchase. Sending Support, another stamp set, and this has got great verses for $50 or $50 purchase. And then the Favorite Flowers DSP, again, is $50. And In the Country was the $50. And then there's Beautifully Happy, which is a $100 purchase stamp set. You get it for free. The Dandy Designs, $100. And then the Hostess, again, is free. The Scenic Garden stamp set, which is really pretty. And I'll be using that in one of my Marvelous Mondays, so you can have some fun learning different coloring techniques. So these are all just some of the things that are available. Now, right now, they have a join. And I would love it if you would like to join Stampin' Up! Now, the primary reason that we all join Stampin' Up! Is to get the discount, because immediately you get 20% off all your supplies. And right now they have 3 options. And they have this beautiful new boho blue, which is going to be one of the new in colors in the annual catalog. And that you can have that for $129 plus choose $175 worth of merchandise. Isn't that fabulous? Or you can get the regular white mini Stampin' Cut machine and get $175 worth of merchandise for $129. Or you can just pick $175 worth of merchandise and only pay $99. This is no shipping for any of this merchandise. So it's the boho blue limited edition stamp and cut and emboss machine, and it's just so cute. And I'll provide more information on my Facebook page as well here shortly. So lots of goodies. Okay, so let's get to the fun part. Okay, so I'm going to use again the E-block because this is a larger image. And instead of using the fence, we're going to use this sweet little image. So let me just set it up so that it's straight and I have it. I like to line up my blocks with my grid paper and my stamp set so that I can stamp straight. Okay, so instead of using ink, which is what we did, we used both the Mossy Meadow and the Early Espresso ink pads. Those smeared when we used the blender pen, but it actually worked to our advantage because it made it really pretty and soft like watercoloring. This time I'm going to use something called Stays On ink. And Stays On ink is a permanent ink that when you add water to it, it won't run. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 3 different techniques. So I'm going to ink the image 3 different times and then we'll get to the next step. So again, I'm using the shimmery white cardstock. It's a little bit off-white. It's not quite vanilla, but it's a little darker than a pure white. Okay, so I'm going to ink up my pad, and this is a larger image. And so I want to make sure that I get it inked up really well. And then I'm just going to center it on my cardstock. Hold it there for a second. I don't rock my stamp or my block, as you notice. I just hold it down straight because when you rock, sometimes you can get ink around the rubber and you'll find yourself with little shadows, and that can really ruin an image. So I'm going to do this again. And these pretty images could easily have a verse added to it, but tonight I'm going to concentrate just on the watercoloring. It has like a little protector that keeps it from drying out. Now the thing about Stays On ink, it tends to want to stay on your stamps, both rubber and photopolymer. So I'm going to put these aside just to give them a little minute to set. And I'm going to clean this. So I want to show you just using a damp pad or rag, you'll find that very little of the ink comes off. So what you would need is, this is a Stays On cleaner, and it has like a little felt tip. And I don't know what the product is, but it really, here, let me bring more light. I apologize. It glares on my face, so I tend not to have enough light. So here, we'll add a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just going to rub this all over my ink pad or my stamp, and then I'll clean it off. And you can run water through or over it after you've done that. It looks like it's in some of the crevices, but it actually will remove, and you can see that it has only the little bits that are in the crevices that I can't get to. So this is Stays On ink and a Stays On cleaner. Okay, and I'll add links to all of this when I post it to my blog and to my Facebook page, so look out for that. Okay, so this is the really pretty image, and I'm going to be using 4 different colors tonight. I'm going to be using Sahara Sand, Flirty Flamingo, Old Olive, and Coastal Cabana. Okay, so when you have stamp pads, whether it's little Stampin' Spots or these big stamp pads, what I tend to do is I tend to squeeze the pad together, and the back you'll find has got a little bit of give to it. And what it does is it adds a little bit of color to my stamp pad. So the first one I'm going to start with is the Sahara sand. So I'm going to squeeze. And I'm going to use the blender pad again. And so I'm going to use my lid. Not everybody likes to do that, and I'll show you another technique here shortly. But I'm just going to add a little bit of color to the block. And I want most of my color in the shadow. So wherever the squiggles are the darkest, that's where I'm going to be adding most of the ink. And again, I'm not trying to be perfect. Just adding a light wash of the color now over the entire area. And then a little bit down here along the ground. Okay, so it's just a hint of color. It's not tons of it. So you can see it looks a little messy, but I promise you it's going to look better. Now, as a reminder, the blender pen, all you need to do is just rub it on your blotter and you'll find that it's clear again. So now I'm going to add a little bit of Old Olive because we've got a lot of greenery. And by starting with just the basic lighter color, you'll find that you still can add lots of other things to it. And I'm just kind of guessing where the flowers are. They're not necessarily, and the little leaves, there's not necessarily a perfect way to do this. Okay. So just add a little bit of color. Okay, I think that's enough green. And then I'm going to add a little bit of Flirty Flamingo for the flowers. Make sure all the green's gone. Prop it up with something. So I'm just kind of giving a hint of the flowers, not necessarily being really exact. And then I'm going to add a little bit of color to the pots. Okay. And now I'm going to come back and just add a little bit of color for the sky. Definitely don't want red. There's two ends to your blender pen, so I'm going to use the other one because the red tends to want to hang out for a little bit more than I wanted to. Okay, so now I'm just going to add darker color around closer, and then you'll find that your blender pen gets lighter and lighter as you go further away. So it just gives a little hint of color. You don't want to color again and again with the blender pen because you'll find that your paper will peel after a while. The watercolor paper is less likely to. I'm going to add a little bit more around the door. And then I'm going to maybe add a pop of the Coastal Cabana to the door. There's nothing prettier than a real pretty door. And you'll find that when you're doing watercoloring, I try to stick to the same color family, or things that complement each other. And then when I'm doing something like this, I want the colors to coordinate with each other. And sometimes I'll repeat a color on something that you don't necessarily think would work, and I'm making this nice and dark. Okay. So really pretty, just basic watercoloring. And again, we're doing the blender pen, but we did it with the inside of our ink pads. Now, if you don't want to use the inside of your ink pads, what you can do, and we'll do this on our next image, we're going to be using these water painters. And the water painters come in 3 different sizes. They have a small and a medium and a large. Looks like I picked up accidentally 2 smalls, but there's 3 sizes. And so I'm going to be using the small one for some of the detail, and I'm going to be using this larger one for bigger details. Okay, so if I don't want to use the inside, and let's say that, you don't want the inside of your stamp pad to be all messed up. Some people are not a fan of that. And so what you can do is you can use one of your blocks, and you can just ink that up. And then I'm going to add a little bit of water. So these water painters have water in this reservoir here. And so I'm just going to be adding some water, and this is going to be a much lighter look. So I want primarily the dark to be in the shadow. And then the more you paint, you'll find that the lighter your ink or your water painting is. So now I'm just going to brush the color everywhere around. And then what I can do is I can come back and I can add detail. I think I'm going to use the smaller one for that. And you can just, if you want it to be a little bit darker, you can actually just use your ink pad. So I'm going to add some more color. Make it a little bit darker in the places that are supposed to be shadowed. Okay, now we can use the next color, and then you just need to have something around to clean off your block, and you'll find that it cleans off really nicely. All right, now we can try the next color, and we'll add the Old Olive. this is just really loose watercoloring. This isn't trying to be exact, and obviously I'm not going to win any awards, but you can get a lot more detailed with your watercoloring if that's what you want to do. Okay, so again, this is kind of like the other one. I'm going to be just wiping the water painter off. It's probably better if I use a rag. And then it comes out clean again. So the ink is water soluble, and you'll find that if you get it on anything, you can always wash your hands later. Okay. So I'll do the Coastal Cabana this time. I think I'm going to use a little bit less ink, and I'm going to use the big water painter again, and I'm going to clean off my brush so there isn't any of that Sahara sand on it. And okay. Now I can bring in a little bit of the Flirty Flamingo. Should we make the door Flirty Flamingo this time? There's no rules. So the thing with watercoloring is it's going to bleed a little bit more, and especially if you're not giving some time between when you paint one color and another. And so you might want to give yourself a little bit of time. If you're going to be doing multiples of them, you can do them in stages. And because I did the Sahara sand first, it's not bleeding around that, so it just makes the door pop. But because I just did the green, it's going to bleed a little bit with that. Okay, so if you're not getting the colors that you really want, you can also add the re-inkers, and you can just add a dot either to the inside of your lid or to one of your blocks, and you can add more color. And it'll really make it pop a lot darker, richer colors. So you can see how much that changed. So you get an idea. It's a little bit looser, but it could still be really pretty. So, all right, that's all I'm going to do today. So hopefully that helped you learn how to do StazOn ink. And again, it's just be nice to yourself, enjoy yourself. Watercoloring is really just a chance for you to, oh, I guess I should put the cards together so you can see what they look like. I do like to frame my images with another color that coordinates with the cards. I'm going to let this one dry a little bit. We'll do this one first. And I probably should have framed it with the Coastal Cabana. That would have been pretty. But, oops. This is my little glue holder. Somebody handed it to me at a convention, so I have no idea where it came from, but I think it was somebody made it, and with the 3D printers. So I think that's where it came from. Okay, and I'll be adding the measurements to my blog and to the Facebook. So this is 3.5 inches by 4.75 or 4 3/4 inch. And then the the old olive piece behind it is 3 5/8 and 4 7/8. So this one is just really pretty. And then we'll do this next one. And then I do have extra to put in inside so that your sentiment or whatever you're going to put on the inside, your written message shows up a little bit better if you always put something on the inside of the card, unless your cardstock is white. Okay, let's do another one for the other card. Oops. I'm not exact with my glue, but you'll find that it's rare that a card will come apart when I'm using this mono glue. Okay, so this is the one that I use the water painters on, so it's a little bit looser. This one was done with the blender pen, a little bit more control, but if you keep coming back, you'll find that you'll pill it up a little bit. Now, even though this wasn't necessarily as detailed as this one, I like the looser look. It kind of just gives me a happy feeling, but I do prefer to wait and give it some time between so that the colors don't bleed as much. So this one bled a lot more than I wanted it to. Normally I set it aside and let that part dry before I move on to the next. So I hope you learned something tonight. I'll post these to my blog and to my YouTube channel. And so feel free to like and share and subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. And I'll continue to update, and have a great week. And hi Zoila, hi Judy. And hi, Arlene and Marcy. Thank you for joining me tonight. Sorry, I didn't put my head up to say hello. So thank you for joining me. And I hope you guys have a great remainder of your Monday, and you have a great week. Talk to you soon.